Right. Pleasant good afternoon, all. I take this opportunity to welcome you to day two of our week of um, job careers. Yesterday we had our first session with respect to business. Today we start with science and technology. I'd like to introduce myself. Well, I don't think I need to introduce myself. I'm Mr. Sampas. I'm the Dean of Form 1. And it's a real honor and privilege because I'm sitting here and I'm watching these panelists. And I can't believe that some of these panelists here are indeed my past students. So really, it's an honor and privilege. I mean, don't be put off by the young, handsome moderator here. I have some years of experience. In fact, this year is going to make it 19 years that I'm teaching in St. Mary's College. And really and truly, I would like to say it's an honor and privilege to be part of today's event. First and foremost, some housekeeping rules. I need to inform all attendees that our session today will be recorded. That's one. Two, feel free to use the chat option because by now you all should be very familiar with the Zoom application. Feel free to use the chat option to pose any questions, and myself together with our PSU president, Mr. Nelson, we will sift through the questions and pose it to the various panelists. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome you all to day two of our career day. I apologize for the absence of our principal, Mr. Nigel Joseph. I mean, as you all are aware, this is a very, very extraordinary time that we are in, and he had some very pressing matters to deal with school and the response with COVID-19. So I would like to introduce to you our various panelists today, Mr. Kyle Maloney, Dr. Hamish Mohammed, Mr. Mark Mayou, and Mr. Jon Pierre. As you'll realize, I have intentionally not introduced the particular field that they are involved with. I am leaving that for them. So how are we going to go about this today? I, as the dean, love to put my past boys on the spot here. So I have written out 6 or 7 questions that they're not familiar with. So I'm leaving them on the spot there. So I have 6 or 7 questions here, and I'm going to pose questions, and we're going to have a round robin, right? Conversation and discussion. So question number 1. So I will start with Kyle. I would like for you guys to take a few minutes to share with our attendees the year that you all graduated from St. Mary's College and introduce yourselves.
All right, yeah, I needed to unmute. Yeah, hi, my name is Kyle Maloney, and I graduated from CIC in 2006 in Form 6. That seems like a long time ago, but to me, it feels like just the other day, quite frankly. It feels like just the other day I was in the big yard sweating and getting in trouble for kicking that ball against the freshly painted Centenary Hall. And Mr. Joseph yelling at me, telling me go to class. You know, like these memories are real fresh in our mind. And through multiple various channels that we have, CIC groups, a lot of our friends basically never get out of that character. You know, they kind of, when you get together, you literally become that person that you was when you was in CIC. So it's funny. So it really feels like not too long ago, but when you think about it, it was like 14 years. It's crazy, right? Seems like quite a long time, but time flies really quickly. What I do, I'm an entrepreneur. I actually in CIC studied physics and maths, and then went on to study aerospace engineering. But then in school, I started my first technology-related company, and I kind of just continued on that trajectory. So since I finished school in 2010, 10 years on, I'm on like my 6th company that I've started. 3 of them still operational, 1 sold. Yeah, and that's my story a little bit.
All right. Thank you very much, Kyle. Well done. And I mean, you left here in 2006, so you're still a little baby in my opinion, right? Looking very good, son. Hamish, what about you, sir?
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Hamish Mohammed. I'm a proud Saint Soul boy, and I finished A-levels in 1996. So, and like Kyle was saying, that feels like yesterday to me. I mean, the memories are still fresh. So just briefly, in terms of introducing myself, I'm an epidemiologist. I'm one of the national leads for sexual health surveillance for Public Health England, which is the national public health agency for England. And I've had a circuitous path getting here. It's been an enjoyable, memorable path, but I'll leave that for later on in the panel discussion. I'm happy to share details about the path and how I've gotten here.
One thing that I need to add, and Hamish, I apologize one time if I stepped over the boundary, but before we started the webinar, we saw a beautiful young lady walking in the background, and when I asked Hamish who that was, he said his wife, and his wife, incidentally, is a Saint girl. So congratulations, you see, we forged families in St. Mary's College. John, let's hear you.
Yes, I will keep it short. I think the question is when he graduated, and Kyle gave a bit of a diatribe. But similar to Kyle, 2006, I live in London now, so I'm probably not too far from Dr. Mohammed. So yeah, 2006, 14 years, seems like yesterday.
And what you up to now?
So since I left St. Mary's, I started, well, obviously I went to university. I went to University College London, Oxford and Cambridge in the UK. I also went into commodities trading. So I started off as an intern in Goldman Sachs, then went to Citibank. After that, I worked at a hedge fund. And then now I'm kind of like Kyle, I guess, a tech entrepreneur, using satellite imagery to big financial services to agriculture farmers throughout the world. So that's kind of my journey from St. Mary's, and former Saint Hen prefect as well. Oh. I think Mark Boyer was one of the prefects in that era as well.
Very good. And I always say St. Mary's College, we produce leaders. We don't produce followers at all. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Bravod, really and truly, for being a pioneer with respect to this webinar. And I would like to put my head on a block and say that I think St. Mary's College, we really stepped out in front here. We are one of the only schools to have something like this. Bravod, am I correct in saying that?
Yep, correct. We're always pioneers and innovators, right? So, you know, it shouldn't be anything new.
So for that school in Mukarapo Street, take that there, please, right? Mark.
Wait, what school on Mukarapo Street?
I'm not sure.
This man pelted wild shots. All of a sudden, pelted shots.
So Mark, what about you?
Fellas, good day. I left in 2006 with these other, I'll say one other slacker, and the other one, someone I actually looked up to a lot because of his discipline. And right now I'm a data science manager. I live in Florida. I work remote. So a lot of today I'll be speaking about sort of the new world of remote work and pursuing a career in tech. I did chemical engineering, systems engineering, and systems engineering as my PhD. Did a lot of machine learning research. So just here to talk about that and why you might want to pursue that moving forward. Other than that, I think what I would want you guys to take away from the stories today is we all started in different places. We had very different attitudes beginning. For instance, just quick story about Jonathan. Like every morning we came in at about 6 o'clock in the morning and he's there doing past papers. I there trying to talk shit with him and he's just like, stop talking to me. I have past papers too. I have to go to the UK. And look at where it's come now, right? So
and reading papers.
And reading papers.
He's still reading their papers too.
So, and you know, he's a commodities trader now. So the folks that put in a lot of work get a lot out, right? And if you look at the brand names that he's sort of accomplished, so you just have to recognize where you are in school, not necessarily saying it will cap your particular endpoint, but just be flexible as you move along.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. So let me ask you guys. I want you to paint a picture for me. The journey from St. Mary's College, because 3 or 4 of you all graduated in 2006, Hamish in 1996. So the journey from St. Mary's College 1996, 2006 to now, how the subjects that you all did in SAINS, your teachers, your experiences, your co-curricular activities, how did all these aspects of St. Mary's College impact on your present career now? Hamish.
So I attribute CIC with it making me a well-rounded individual. So I think there's something about, I'm from Tunapuna, so there was something about the experience of traveling into town to go to school. I've made lifelong friends from that time. So the PSU president is a very close friend of mine, Mr. Nelson. So there's something about the friendships forged in CIC. I met my wife at CIC. She didn't take me on for about 15 years, but fortunately, we've after our own journey, we've been married for almost 10 years now. And to answer the question posed in terms of just documenting the journey, so I did for A levels, I did biology, chem, and maths and GP, and then that was my gateway into a full academic scholarship to go to Morehouse College in Atlanta, a historically Black college and university. So at that point in Morehouse was, we called it UE Atlanta because there were other Saintsmen there, fellows from Fatima, QRC, fellows from South, fellows from Tobago. So that was a fantastic experience, and it helped because it was a culture shock moving from Trinidad to Atlanta. I did math and again made some important friendships there. So while in CIC, I just wanted to say, sometimes there's certain traditional career paths you think of. So you think of, let's say, medicine or law. And oftentimes we're tempted to think these are certain boxes we all have to fit into, okay? So certainly while in CIC, I was like, I'll think about medicine. But I never really felt a calling to be a medical doctor. But in A levels in biology, there was an option to do public health, and we focused on outbreaks. Trinidad, by virtue of our position close to South America, we're always at risk of outbreaks of yellow fever. We have occasional dengue outbreaks. So that kind of primed me and got me into the mindset of, well, what is the best combination of medicine and data science and statistics and mathematics? So in Morehouse, I majored in mathematics and then did an internship at the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And that cemented my passion to go into epidemiology. Now, epidemiology is not a formal discipline at least during my time, it wasn't on the secondary school curriculum. But it is the study of patterns in disease. So right now you think of COVID-19, who is more likely to be infected, who's more likely to have adverse outcomes, who's likely to end up in hospital, how is it spreading, who has symptoms. So that is epidemiology. That's my bread and butter. And I'm proud to say I'm part of the UK's national response for COVID-19. So going back to just kind of talking about the path, after Morehouse, I went to Tulane University in New Orleans, where I did a master's in public health in epidemiology and a PhD in epidemiology as well. And New Orleans is a fantastic place. It connects with me as a Trinbagonian because there is a rich carnival culture there. There's a musical tradition. There's a lot you can identify with. So for instance, there's a bit of French Creole spoken as well. And I'll never forget, I went to the mechanic to do something and he threw in something extra and he said, that's lanyap. And I stopped and I was like, what? But that's normal in New Orleans because we share that cultural and that kind of heritage, right? So after Tulane, I joined the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, so the American National Public Health Entity, and joined a program called the Epidemic Intelligence Service and went to Puerto Rico. And again, anybody in Saints right now who thinks Spanish is a waste of time, I'll tell you that's not the case because it was the learning and the education I had was Mr. Williams who taught me Spanish in Saints. And that foundation in grammar served me in good stead in Puerto Rico, personally and professionally, right? So I spent 3 years there focusing on dengue fever research and supporting dengue outbreak investigations in the US Virgin Islands, in Puerto Rico. Spent a bit of time in Trinidad at the Caribbean Epidemiology Center, what's now CARFA, and then went to a university, a veterinary school in St. Kitts, where I continued my dengue research and taught veterinary school students. came back to Trinidad and spent some time at University of Trinidad and Tobago for a couple of years. And then at that point in time, my wife, who also went to CIC and was when A-levels with me, she got admitted to a doctoral program in London. So we moved to London and have been in London for it's about 7 years now. So since I've been here, I'm now an epidemiologist focusing on sexual health, and I manage the national team, the national surveillance for STIs and HIV in England. And I manage this wonderful team of data scientists, epidemiologists, information systems managers. And we monitor trends in STIs, we look for outbreaks. And I'm also now currently involved in the COVID-19 response in terms of supporting that epidemiological function. And along the way, I've been fortunate to spend time working for the World Health Organization in Sierra Leone for Ebola, in India on polio, and a couple of other really, really important places. And as someone from Trinidad, to go to India and West Africa, I mean, that's like spiritual homeland for most of the population of Trinidad and Tobago, right? So it's an important experience. And again, it's been a circuitous path, but I've had epidemiology at the forefront, and I'm very much passionate about the field. And that foundation from Saints has definitely served me in good stead.
Very good to hear. Now, for you guys, remember this is our Form 3 career day, the career week. And there's one thing, I mean, Hamish, I really want to drive home to the Form 3 students who are listening right now. You said something that resonated. Spanish is not a waste of time subject. So therefore, languages are not a waste of time subject. So really and truly, Hamish, thank you very, very much for that input, and I hope it resonates with our boys who are listening. Mark, what about you, son?
Oh, Lord. So just FYI, I don't like school. Never liked it. I think I'll spend most of my life in school. Funny enough, those things come back to haunt you. And what I would say about your education in CIC and going through the full breadth of education, getting a PhD and all of that stuff, when you don't want to do it, you learn that school is a game, okay? There is a system that exists where you are judged in the marketplace. You are paid higher, at least if you're in the employment marketplace, based on certain credentials, and that gives you certain opportunities. And certain schools have certain brands. When I left in 2006, I went to a small school in Florida, Melbourne, Florida, called Florida Tech. It's like right on the beach. And I was like, oh, on the beach, I always wanted to surf. So I decided to stay. I was doing chemical engineering. I have no clue what I want to do, right? So I've finished all my education. This is my second job, doing well. And I'm here to tell you guys, like, if you don't know what you want to do, the position that I've taken is like, hey, I had the abilities to do things that people get paid a lot to do. So when I was going to college, I was like, what degrees get paid the most? And I was like, oh, chemical engineering. Oh, I did a bunch of chemistry in school, maths, chem, phys. Wasn't very great at it just because I was lazy, just straight up, okay? That has a big factor, be honest with yourself. And yeah, my first year in college, I came home, I told my dad, hey, I want to become a chef. And he's like, hell no, you're not leaving school to become a chef. So I had to finish school. And, you know, one thing about going to school in the US, if you don't pass, you get deported. So you can't go home and waste your parents' money because you'll get killed. That makes sense. And when I finished my bachelor's, I was trying to find a job. Couldn't find one. I got a scholarship to do my master's. And I was like, wow, I have to go back and do more school. So I was like, okay, fire for chemical engineering because I just didn't like it anymore. Never did like it, actually. And my thought in doing chemical engineering was hedging bets. If I had to get a job in Trinidad, chemical engineering was sort of the premier thing that you could do. Next, I did master's in systems engineering. I was like, oh, no prerequisites, technical, I'll go. And the one thing that I think has stayed true in my career is stay technical. Stay as technical as you can because that gives you an edge in the marketplace. I met my advisor and I was taking a class and he's like, yeah, you're wasting time taking this class. And he's teaching the class. So when the teacher of the class tells you like, this will not help your career, you're wasting time in school, I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, come and do some machine learning. So just beware when you go to college, professors need to fill up their summer classes. So they'll entice you to take their summer classes so they get paid, regardless of how good you are. So I took the class, I died. However, like I passed obviously, but it was really tough. and he gave me a grant to do research. So I got my first research grant for 1 year and started working on anomaly detection on internet data, right? So that was my first real foray into machine learning. Got another grant doing computer vision, and basically he said, every new grant, he's like, all right, I need you to learn about video tracking. So every step along my career, I had to learn something completely new and execute on it. Otherwise, you don't get money. I had an interview at Microsoft when I finished my master's, and I actually had a friend on the interview panel, and he was like, you know, they took us all out, the whole cohort, and he told me everybody is going to get offers. And I was like, yeah, I get an offer. Don't worry yourself. Everybody's like, I don't know how well I did. I knew who was going to get a job. So you check me now. Hey, don't worry yourself. You're going to get this job thing. I was supposed to get an offer. That didn't happen, obviously. And you are faced a choice in America. Okay, you have 1 year to get a job. Otherwise, you have to leave. And he was like, well, I have 1 year funding to do a PhD. And I was like, dog, more school? Like, no. But I liked working for him. And what I did like about him, he could speak very well, right? He had all the personality skills, but he was extremely technical, right? And that's what I've learned over time. That's a great skill to have. And that's what has positioned me very well in the marketplace. Not that I'm the smartest guy in the room. And all this time, Kyle building companies all over the place, you know, again, millions of dollars in funding. And I literally sat in one room for 7 years doing a PhD. And Dr. Mohammed could definitely give you some insights as to that, right? It's not the funnest process. What you learn in there is an incredible amount of grit, right? So I'd spend many nights under my desk just sleeping, running experiments. It's not for the faint of heart. However, when I finished, I got my first job in a railroad company doing data science. I stayed there for about 2 years, and I got this job at this company called LucidWorks, thanks to Kyle. So the next thing in your career, it's all networking. So a funny story, now I work remote, I'm a data science manager, and we provide back-end search. We essentially like Google for your company, and we'll come put a search engine on your data. The thing I want you to take away is start networking from now, because you really don't know how certain avenues will open up, right? So for instance, I met a guy because I randomly decided to go to San Francisco for whatever strange reason. I met a guy from Trinidad, a Rasta fella, just in some random event. I introduced him to Kyle. Him and Kyle get connected. 3 or 4 years later, I get introduced to my CEO because Kyle randomly tells me to come out to San Francisco and meet him. Okay. And now I have a job paying very well. I work from home. I was flying to San Francisco all the time. And my last thing is I had put this goal where I wanted to work in Silicon Valley without actually living there because it's super expensive. And that's pretty much what I do. Every 6 weeks before COVID, I was in Silicon Valley for like a week or 2 weeks, fully paid. So I eat in my belly full, $75 a day, right? So what I really want you to take away is I still don't know what I want to do. I decided that I recognize that I live in a marketplace, and that marketplace commands a certain amount of money per hour for a particular skill set. So now I've stayed in data science. Data scientists get paid very well. And all of that started at CIC. If I did not have Maths Chem Phys at CIC, that would not have gotten me all the way up. And I think you guys should definitely focus on respecting your teachers a lot, because they forego a lot of opportunities to stay in CIC to teach you all. And I distinctly remember Mr. Sampat screaming at us like, you know, I don't know if he's screaming as much now, but back then, like when our man screamed, like, you're shutting up. And what I learned over time is that we were very rowdy, just as I imagine you all are very rowdy. So please pay that respect to your teachers to some degree, right? When, you know, they could have gone on and do things like made tons of money and all this kind of stuff, but they're there to grow you. So please honor that and know that the investment that they make in you will pay off a lot later on. Short story long.
Thank you very much, Mark. So in addition to, I need to ask you this, in addition to having your core academic subjects in St. Mary's College, would you say
Yep.
the networking from St. Mary's College allowed you to play a very instrumental role right now where you are?
100%, right? So as Dr. Mohammed said, you know, you get a lot of different access to different cultures. And I think you have to recognize that as a Trinidadian, you have a distinct advantage when you go out into the marketplace. especially if you've interacted with other people from other races, because you just naturally blend. You have a certain energy. People like the accent, and if it wasn't for Kyle, I wouldn't have my job now, right? So that networking stays with you the entire time.
All right, thank you very much. Jon, let's hear you now.
Yeah. How do I follow Mayou? That was a very inspirational story. I'll just take a different approach. I would say, when I was in Form 1, 2, 3, I think I was really like middle of the road. I think Kyle, we were like 2.8 together or something, right? So we weren't smart enough to be in 2.9 or the, I don't know, do they still have that class that skips Form 3?
What is it, 2.5 now or something, right?
Yeah, whatever it is. So
Yeah,
we
but
were
2.5 was the dumbest class.
We could
So
Whoa.
It was, right?
anyway,
Sorry,
back,
boy. Yeah, sorry for that.
let's go back on track. We weren't quite smart enough to be with the boys.
Diplomacy.
We weren't quite smart enough to be with the boys who skipped the year. We weren't sure exactly what you want to do. You're still getting like, coming first in the class, you come in middle of the class. But one message I'll give you is that, everyone is on a different race in terms of, people have different trajectories. And it's about who finished the strongest, right? And I think around Form 3 and Form 4, which I think the audience is here, that is exactly where, it's time to really buckle down and get serious. Because, it don't matter what you did in Form 1, if you was bottom of the class in Form 2 and 2.5, as Mayou was saying, it's all about from here on in. If you mean business, like the world is your oyster, literally. So I would say when I was in Form 3, I was connected with someone I still thought was probably the most inspirational teacher in my whole life. And when I say that, I mean, I've been to university, studied the same subject, essentially economics, in 3 different universities. But I still think, Mr. Balwant was probably still the best economic teacher I had and some of my teachers were knights, so I would say, once you find a teacher who could be really mentor you, give you, once you realize you have a spark, an interest in a subject, it could be maths, econ, Spanish, whatever it is, as long as you focus to really try and be the best in that subject, opportunities will present themselves. And it doesn't matter if you weren't doing well in, before you did your GCSEs or O levels or whatever you call it. But, even, if you have 1 month, 2 months beforehand to really buckle down, just do it, because some of the best memories you'll have is after that last exam, when you put in, all the efforts, and you could go to bed and relax, I mean, some of the best memories we had, I remember, you probably can't do it anymore, but we used to come in on Saturday, right? Saturday night, we used to have all-nighter. Mm-hmm. Okay, we spent probably 2 hours sweating in the big yard, right? But still, we put down some, at least we tried to put down some serious studies, even, week before the exam, So I would say, just focus on the finish line. Don't get too tied up if, you feel like, you haven't been excelling so far in CIC. You feel like you should have gone to the next school, or your subjects, feel like you're really feeling a passion for it. But I would say just, really find those teachers who could, who you have a connection with, and the subject matter that really, you connect with as well. And just try and excel as much as you can and focus on getting through that exam. That's kind of my 2 cents.
All right, thank you very much, Jon. And I mean, I need to add to what you said. Mr. Balwant still batting strong in St. Mary's College. He's the Dean of Form 6. And before I hand over to Kyle, it's a real funny story. Imagine when I was a student there in St. Mary's College, I was 91 to 97. Mr. Balwant was a teacher there, and now he and I are very, very good friends. So it was really strange when I now started to teach to address Mr. Balwant as, by his first name, as opposed to Mr. Balwant. But these are all the teachers and all the experiences that play a real pivotal role.
Yeah, Mr. Brown was a next one I didn't mention as well.
Yes.
But he's
Mr. Brown still there. Still there.
Yeah.
So Kyle, let's hear you now.
Yeah. My story a little bit. during my time in TIC, I think it was, for me, it was a big social experience. And I think me having that perspective on it is kind of a testament to my own personality and my vantage point of where I see the world, and then tied into my own personal trajectory and purpose and how I've manifested that into my life today, right? Mark giving you a glimpse into that a little bit in terms of like the fact that he is able to capitalize on a network that I've worked on building to then secure a job for himself. And Mark is one of a few people that could give those sort of examples. Yeah. So I saw my time in CIC as an opportunity. I think Mr. Rez, I don't know if Mr. Rez is still there, but he was our art teacher back in the day. And in Form 1, he sat us down, he told us that he really built a complex into your head, boy. He say, you guys are the cream of the crop. You guys are the top percentage of the people in the country. So you don't do half the work by just coming here and sitting down. Look around you. These here are the leaders of tomorrow. And you need to look around and treat everybody like they are going to be the leader of their field tomorrow. And never forget that. And I took that message in Form 1 straight through with me throughout school. So much so that like the attitudes that I brought to the people I interacted with in school was one of collaboration, was one of like, let me see what this guy doing. We could be friends. We could work on a lab together. We could do things together. Go watch football. Do something. Find ways in which I can interact with more people that weren't even within my immediate circle. And so I did sciences. I did phys chem maths in Form 6 and did add maths, managed geography kind of thing in Form 5. And even outside of my Science 1 class, my network within school was much beyond that. Like a lot of people actually, because I had an inclination for business, thought that I was a business student, you know? And so my sort of approach to CIC, because Mr. Rez, that really stuck with me. And that was quite back in Form 1 in 1999. That took like my personal like perspective on school in a very unique way, that I saw everybody as valuable in their own ways. And in school, you kind of fall prey to bullying in some respect, because it's kind of cool. You know, like you're the cool guy and they're the loser for whatever reason that is cool these days, right? And I kind of never really like played too much into that in that way, because I always saw that each person brought something really unique, and everybody I appreciated as really smart in their own way. And so coming out from that today, like I feel like I have a pretty good relationship with a number of people coming from school across a wide sector of my year group. And so if it's one thing that I would think that I would want someone to take away, would be that perspective, in that understanding and appreciating the unique genius in each person that sits next to you. And just because they're not slam dunking and doing amazing at their academics doesn't mean that they don't really have a really amazing perspective on the world that is really unique, that is just not manifesting themselves in a way that records as 8 ones, you know? Some guys that I know that are super, super smart, and they have such a really strong philosophical view on the world that just didn't manifest themselves and apply themselves in that way in the academic space and the academic arena. And now when I look back and have conversations with them, I'm like, Jesus Lord, like you really was real smart, man. Mm-hmm. And men real count you out too early, you know? And you even count yourself out too early because people count you out too early, you know? So I think for me, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. I think that's really important looking back now, like 15 years later, like that I wish that you guys could take away too, because I took that away really, really as well.
All right. So from what I gather from the 4 of you all here, I mean, so far that we've been discussing, yes, the academics are important, don't get me wrong, but what is maybe even more important, the networking, the interaction, and the relationships you forge with your teachers. True or false? All right. So today is Thursday, July 2nd. Yes, today is Tuesday, July 2nd. So I'm going to direct this question to Hamish. And the reason why Hamish is being put on the spot because, as you all aware, it's 5 hours ahead in England. So therefore, he needs his beauty rest, right? Considering the field that he's in. So, Hamish, how was your day? What's a typical day for you?
I would say I am fortunate because my days could vary from one to the next. And I'll give an example from some fieldwork. So you'll remember, most of you, that the largest Ebola outbreak in recorded history happened between 2014 and 2015. They had over 20,000 cases, about half of them died. And it hit 3 countries in West Africa. And again, West Africa is important to us in the Caribbean because that really is, as I mentioned, one of our, again, an important place in terms of the heritage of Trinidad and Tobago. So Sierra Leone, I was stationed in Sierra Leone, and to give a typical day, it would be a meeting with the World Health Organization, local counterparts, to review the daily data on new Ebola cases, people who died from Ebola, and then jump in a vehicle and go into villages to visit different health clinics, to interview staff, to collect primary data. So they have and this happens in Trinidad as well, where they don't have computerized health records. So they had health records in copybooks, and all the copybooks would have football teams from the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga on the cover. But each copybook would have an individual medical records. So on that day, working with a colleague, we would pull the data. At the end of it, analyze it. And the question we were trying to answer was, people who survived Ebola, most people fortunately would survive it, but for years afterwards, they would have a series of really puzzling symptoms. So the analysis was based on that data in those copybooks, analyzing data. So a combination of out in the vehicle, in the villages, in health centers, pulling data from hard copy records, and then doing the fun stuff on the computers as well, right? So programming the statistical language to analyze data and look to what predisposes people to having more severe outcomes after they've survived Ebola. So that's just one example of a typical day in the life of an epidemiologist.
And you still looking sane? Or you
Well,
that?
I think it's important to know once you're heart in it and you're passionate about it, yes, it is a job, but and yes, there will be stress. It's not to take away from the point that you will have difficult periods, but as long as you do something you enjoy, then that part is not so bad. You can deal with it. You know what I mean? So it's not, I don't mind it. I mean, you can't do that day in, day out for years, right? You have to kind of mix it up with desk-based work and so on. But the field work is always a good way to get away from the desk, move around, interact with the people that you're actually trying to help. Because now I know Dr. Mayou is a data scientist, so it's easy to be caught up in the allure, the attraction of big data and the promise that it holds. But at the same time, there's something powerful about interacting with the source of the data, the people themselves. So yeah, it's good to mix it up.
Well, I hope you guys don't mind it because I taken notes while you speaking here because I am planning to take pieces of this to talk to my Form 1s. And Hamish, you really hit the nail on the head. Do something that you like.
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
So, John, let me hear you about your day.
Yeah, so I'll start first with my former career as a trader, where I had a very structured day, I would say. I wake up in the morning, look at what happened in the markets overnight, so I was trading commodities, primarily agriculture. I would see what the weather was looking like, and I would talk to my data scientist. So I had someone who was working with me who was, crunching the numbers, seeing how, the different balance sheets looked. And I took a view on the markets. And that was kind of, a very, I wouldn't say a totally relaxed day, but it was a very structured day. Now I'm more in the realms of entrepreneurship, kind of closer to Kyle's world, I would say. And the day is very unstructured, I would say. So it's literally my role right now. I'm chief business officer in an AI company. We have an investor who, is based out of India. His family is one of the richest families in India. And, so you have an investor you have to deal with and appease. You have customers who you're trying to bring in. You're trying to, develop a team, grow a team, hire people. So all of these things, you have to have to try and find time during the day to do. So, you know, it comes down to time management and all these kind of skills, which, you know, you actually start learning in school, in secondary school in a way, you know, how you manage to, you know, study. So I did maths, further maths, econ, and history, right? Which is a bit of a weird combination at the time. Probably still is a weird combination. But I had to manage all these different things where it wasn't entirely connected. Like history wasn't that connected to my further maths and all that. So in a way, I was kind of used to juggling different, you know, activities, different timetables, different unconnected, you know, subject matter. And now when I have to talk to someone who, you know, is a IT person, and I have to talk to a salesperson, and I have to look and literally when you have a small business, you literally have to do everything, right? Yeah, you know, you have a job, you have a title that says Chief Executive Officer, but you might as well also be the janitor as well, because you have to do everything in between. So, you know, you have to have that adaptability. And I think that's kind of the main thing. That's kind of the main skill that you know, you need to have. And I would say as well, you know, it's an exciting time, I think, to be in your position, to be in school, because the world is changing so quickly. You know, I would say when, you know, I mean, you can imagine back in 1999, like Kyle said, you know, I remember, you know, my father bought our first computer from Mayou's father, right? In 97, right? We went up to Trin City, I think, you know, and Mayou's dad sold my dad the computer. And I think we used to plug in a little phone line in the back. And then if I wanted to you know, download or play a game, you have to leave it on overnight to download the game. And sometimes someone will call and nothing would happen anyway, right? Now, you know, you're living in an exciting time. You know, there's a lot more opportunities out there. The world is changing very quickly. So I think, you know, flexibility, adaptability, you know, being able to, you know, learn different things quickly. These are all skills that, you know, are going to, you know, do you well in the future. So yeah, and you have to start in school. I mean, I don't know if I answered that question on what my typical day is, but you know, I'm just trying to give you a flavor also as to what the skills are that are required for the modern economy as well.
No, you did, because I mean, adaptability, flexibility, multitasking, that's your typical day in the life of Jon Pierre. So well done. So before I hand over to Mark, I want to remind parents and all our attendees, feel free to ask any questions via the question and answer option. And again, we will sift through the questions and pose it to the different guys. So, Mark.
Yeah, fellas, a bit about Mark.
I'm sure your day very interesting.
Yeah, so I actually have a big issue. So at CIC, I used to come to school with a pillow to sleep in class. That's the guy that I was. When you reach in the morning, you go by the principal office at our couch there. I used to sleep there all the time before school start. Usually a teacher would have to like wake me up and say, go to class. Okay, so I always had a problem with sleeping. Luckily, I stayed in school as long as I could. So like I didn't have to go to a regular 8 to 5 job, and, you know, just because I didn't like an office. And yeah, so I would turn my lab into a gym, and I'm giving you this backstory so you understand my day now. When I joined a railroad company, you know, super officey, I would run away in some like room and go sleep under a desk lunchtime, right? That's the kind of person that I was. And now that I work full remote, it completely aligns with who I am, right? And sort of my just randomness. So for instance, I'll wake up, let's say 8:30, drink some coffee, do some yoga, relax a little bit, read a book, start work, and start working. And I just come in this room, hop on whatever calls I have to hop on with my clients. And the clients that I have, I'm in a growth stage startup. So when you think of startups trying to IPO, like my startup just got like 100 million. So we're on that path trying to, you know, so as Jonathan is saying, you have to do everything. So I'm a data science manager. I train salespeople, like I'm implementing algorithms myself. I'm talking to clients. And the thing that makes me very good at my job is speaking with clients and being able to do technical stuff as well. The one thing I want to point out is, you know, the multitasking is fantastic. You should seriously consider a technical career. So for instance, I do some real estate investing on the side, and I was just looking for some people to do some work, and I can get work in the Philippines for $4 US an hour. Okay, why would I ever hire somebody locally to do that? And this is the new economy that you are in. So while there's a bunch of technology for you to do a ton of things, be very careful with the base skill set that you have if you play in the employment market. The world is now global and you can find work a lot cheaper. On the outside, midday, I go for a walk in the sun. In the afternoon, I work out. I have a full gym in my garage. So at any point in the day, I could go work out if I want to. And yeah, so that freedom, I would gladly sacrifice any salary for that kind of freedom. I'll take a nap right after work too. That's a big thing for me. So yeah, that's a typical day.
So I can safely say you're doing something that you love.
No.
No?
Nope. No. I enjoy the conditions of my work and I think that's one point I want to make too, right? Mm-hmm. If you heard from Dr. Mohammed, I'm always jealous of people who do what they love, right? I'm here to pose the other question. Okay. You learn to love what you do when you become very good at it. That's the flip side. Okay, so there's this period where you won't like it for a long time until you get good and you're like, oh, this buys me all of this freedom. I can travel anywhere I want for free. So it's like, okay, I like it, right? So I think the reasons that you start might not be the reasons that you continue to do something later on.
Or like arranged marriage that way.
Fair enough. Now, before I hand over to Kyle, I know, Hamish, you have to leave in a little while. So there's a question that someone asked, and I'm going to try to paraphrase it here. How difficult, so I've studied medicine in Trinidad and Tobago, right? How difficult is it to get a job overseas in that field?
So that question came through from Abdullah. So thanks for the question. And I snuck in a quick private response to him as well. But for the benefit of the other attendees, I would say it's studying medicine would, I think, serve you in good stead for future career paths, both medical and otherwise. From my perspective, I think if you do medicine, you open up a lot of opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, regionally. If you are highly specialized, however, because Trinidad and Tobago is a small country, we are a small country, then if you're very specialized, you might find it more difficult to get jobs at that skill set. You know what I mean? So I think if the key thing is if you do medicine and you're passionate about it, I don't think it's difficult to say it's certainly what the future looks like, but I think it's a good option in terms of career prospects.
All right, thanks very much. Well, I have a little correction to make. Hamish said that he will stay on. So thank you very much. I hope we don't have to do any kind of damage control with your wife now, right? So
I gotta do something.
Well, brother will handle that. Fair enough, right? So Kyle, let's hear your typical day, sir.
Yeah. My typical day is really, well, I mean, you have a COVID typical day and you have a pre-COVID typical day. So my typical day now, I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out, quite frankly. Like, I really don't know what typical looks like right now. I'm really trying to figure it out. But I can tell you what my typical day looked like for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, from the time I got out of university, my mind already was set on that I was going to start another company in Trinidad. And so I have a real unique trajectory compared to everybody here and most people in general, in the sense that I never had a job. I never applied for a job, and career fairs in school, I took pride in interviewing the person who they sent to the career fair to ask them why I should come work for them. Like, what is so interesting about your company? What do you even like your job? You know, like if I met up with someone like Mark and Mark told me he didn't like his job, I'm like, exactly, I don't want to come work here. Thank you for your time, Mr. Mayou. I'll carry on with my life. You know, so I am really, really unique. I don't know if you want to benchmark on me, but I'll provide an outlier example of what is possible. And so I together as well went to school with my brother. My brother was 1 year behind me in CIC, but then I took a year off in CIC, got my private pilot's license, and then both of us went to university together to study aerospace engineering. So both of us were in school together. We literally joined to the hip. Like, I live here in Port of Spain, Trinidad, in Woodbrook, and his room is right there. So, and his room literally has been there my entire life. So I don't even know anybody who's had such a unique relationship with their brother as well, you know? So we do everything together. So my story that I tell you is almost exactly the same thing as his, interestingly enough. So after university, I came home and I started this company that was focused on making buildings more sustainable and energy efficient. I was real set in my mind that coming from an entrepreneurial household and having friends within the entrepreneurial space. So my best friend, his father owns SM Jalil. So that's like the soft drink manufacturer, produces Chubby, Fruita, Buster, etc. And then my other really close friend, who's like my brother now, his father is an engineer and has worked as a professional more so. But me still having that sort of network and coming from the network of CIC, even people like Jonathan and Mark's parents are both entrepreneurs as well, right? Jonathan's father is like a quantity surveyor. Mark's dad is an entrepreneur dealing within networking and computers for the lifetime. And so having those sort of interactions, growing up in that space, like my mindset was I was going to study engineering from the perspective of building a sense of discipline and critical thinking capability. And that's what my mom especially pushed me towards. And taking that sort of mindset and eventually getting a job. But in between, meeting a professor in my university was like, what are you doing? Why are you waiting to go get a job later on? It's clear that you have an affinity for this. You know a lot more about this than the typical engineer, and you care a lot more about this. Start today, right? And then when I started, it was the same time that Twitter and Facebook was founded. And so I kind of gained inspiration from those companies as well to kind of go and start my own thing. So I built this company called Novus Tech that was focused on making buildings more sustainable and energy efficient. I came home and I decided that try to find an industry that wouldn't take me long to learn, and there wasn't a lot of competition in it, and the barrier to entry was low, and I could make some good headway. And I feel as though, quite frankly, along the way, I was blessed a lot. So I managed to get a really substantial client and convince them that myself and my team could execute and make their buildings more sustainable and energy efficient. And my first contract was a $12 million TT contract that I got when I was in 2011. So that was 9 years ago. 9 years ago I was 24 and my brother was 22. So like I tell you, my story is real abnormal. So we were real lucky to get that contract. That contract was massively profitable to us, and that took us on a whole other trajectory and started my second web technology company, which was called First. Started First, and we built out a lot of the product and a lot of the branding around it. And we went to Digicel to ask them to sponsor our launch event. They said, yeah, cool. A week later, Digicel came back and said, well, guys, we spoke to our board, and I think that we want to do a bit more than sponsor the event. And I was on the phone there talking with their former CEO at the time. And she's like, what do you think about Digicel investing in your company? I was like, what? It's like, we barely even launch. And she said, yeah, we got a directive from our chairman that we need to go find a company within our portfolio, companies within our portfolio territory, that is in the technology space and invest in them if they have good potential. So fast forward that conversation happened in 2013, 2014, Digicel ended up investing $11.75 million into our company, which again, not normal. Is a testament to me manifesting these things in my life, for sure. But a lot of entrepreneurs do, that's what the entrepreneur dream is, to eventually get that big contract, have those big deals coming in, that sort of thing. So, I mean, a lot of people will want to attribute their own successes to their own, talents, and fine. All of us here are smart, so there's something else. There's something else that comes into play besides being smart, because you're on a call with a bunch of really smart guys, evidently, and each of us all came from the same institutions that you guys are at. So there's something that's a bit different, there's a cross-section between skill, talent, and purpose, And what I found is that it's clear that this is a special calling in my life as it relates to operating in this space. And I feel that God has reminded me of this on numerous occasions in numerous ways. And where other people would have struggled, I continuously, and when I say I meaning like I still operate with my brother, my best friends as well. We continue to make strides where other people haven't been able to make strides, and doors open for us where I can't even explain sometimes, you know, like that's just, and it just walks through the door, you know. I went on from there to start another company, because that company, well, I sold the first company, and then we started the second company, and then that company failed big time, and that was my biggest failure ever to date, and it was big time. But then I started another company after that, and 1 year after starting that company, which is called Techbeach, you guys can look it up, which is focused on growing the startup and technology business ecosystem across the Caribbean. I got another reminder from God that this is the direction that you need to take your life. I walked into a cafe in San Francisco and met the CEO of Twitter while he was getting coffee in a coffee shop, which is not normal. He don't do really. And I managed to convince him with a 3-minute conversation to come to a country he'd never been to an event that only had its second year. The first year we only had 130 people. He came to my event and never met me before. And that brought a stamp of solidity of what we were doing and a lot of eyes and attention to the work that we were doing that I couldn't plan for that, you know? You know, like, and I haven't been able to repeat that. Like I don't have Mark Zuckerberg coming to my event, you know, and I don't have Elon Musk, you know, so these aren't like specially strategic things that I am able to like craft, but I feel as though I continue to manifest what I want for myself and what we want for the companies, what we want to achieve. And we set really big goals. And that's the sort of like mentality that we have, to really set goals that are way beyond even sometimes what we think we can achieve. You know, it's kind of the mentality of aim for the stars and you fall on the moon kind of thing. And we continuously do that, and we end up falling on the moon. And so that company now has gone on to have partnerships with some of the largest technology companies, and we have a pretty sizable announcement that's going to come post-COVID as well. That is really exciting. And so my day kind of falls in the line of like meeting with a lot of interesting people, some of these brightest people in the world. I'm constantly in conversation with those sorts of people, go into their homes to meet them, go into the offices to meet them. It's really not normal. Like my given days is spending time talking to people like Mark and Jonathan and Brevard and asking them, how can we work together to kind of push the agenda of technology in the Caribbean and solve problems in the region. And I'm already like looking at Hashim and thinking like, I wonder Hamish, I'm wondering like, I wonder how we could possibly work together in the future, you know? And that's how my brain always goes. I'm like, how can I place somebody to help solve a problem that we have, that I'm facing, that somebody's facing? How can I connect people to have them work together in some way? And that's how my mind works, and that's how I constantly work. And that's the space that I'm in, and that's how my days are generally speaking to people, trying to solve problems and figuring out how I could connect people who are solving similar problems together. Sort of thing. And so, I mean, yeah, that's my story.
So before we move on, I need to ask the four of you all, is there anything that you all don't do?
Plenty.
Because I mean, I'm running out of space to take down notes here. I'm hearing from, I mean, right across the board. And really and truly, gentlemen, keep up the good work.
I'll just add to what Kyle is saying, because obviously the panel here is probably a bit biased in terms of it's very international in a way, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But I would say at the same time, you know, it's very easy to think in a way that Trinidad is the center of the universe, you know, in a way. You know, Trinities like to say, you know, God is a Trini, and you really think, oh yeah, I'm a Tuna Puna guy or Dego man or whatever. But I would say,
Eastman and Westman.
There's an Eastman and Westman, you know. But, you know, actually when you leave Trinidad, it's a very humbling experience, right? Because you know, literally most people have never heard of Trinidad, right? I mean, okay, back in the day, you start Brian Lara and Dwight York, but these days there's nobody really. So, you know, most people don't know what Trinidad is. But I think, you know, if you can yourself have an international mindset, you know, you follow what's going on in the world, just watch the news now and then, read The Economist if you want, that kind of thing. I mean, you'd see there's so many exciting things going on right now. Like Kyle's trajectory probably wasn't possible 10 years before he started doing it, right? And now, with your crop coming up, it's probably even more doable because of all the digital tools available to start your own company. And, literally, these days, if you want to bring in customers, you could go on LinkedIn, you could do all these things on social media as well. So, I would say, the world really is your oyster, so to speak, and keep an international mindset as well. Don't just say, okay, I'm a Trinidadian or I'm an Eastman or whatever. Think about the Caribbean as well. Can I, if I'm going to another country, can I speak to people there? Do I have anyone in my network in other industries as well? So, just keep that broad-based approach as well is the point. And I think a few people have asked about like immigration and these things as well. I would say from the UK perspective, I came to study here in 2006. At the time, there was a 2-year visa you could get after you studied. So you could get a job and 2 years afterwards, you could get a visa very easily. And then afterwards, your employer would have to sponsor it. And then probably 2 years after I got that, they stopped doing that whole thing. And they said, oh no, as soon as you graduate, you have to go back to your country or you have to get a sponsored visa. And I think this last year, the government has brought that back in again. So actually, with the pound being weak as well, it's probably not a bad time to come and study in the UK and, get that experience internationally. I'm not saying that you can't go and study in UA, but I would say, think about the world as well. There's so much you could do. So, and like Kyle has done, you could go and take back. You go and you extract the best things. You go and see what's out there and you see, there's gaps that I could be filling in Trinidad or in the Caribbean or whatever. Maybe I'm giving away Kyle's secret to success. But, there's so many things you can learn and bring back as well that will, put you in good stead going forward as well.
All right. So John, I want to ask you, and I mean, I will eventually ask everybody here. I mean, as you all are aware, this is our Form 3 career day. So therefore, but we did open it up to the rest of the school. So we have from right across the board, from Form 1 to Form 6. You all were mentioning earlier with the accelerated program and stuff like that. I was a product of the accelerated program. I was in 2A and I was considering to skip to Form 4. I was thinking about Form 3, but it was one day I interacted with the then Dean of Form 3, Mr. Raja, and he was a beast. So therefore I went home and I worked my tail off to skip Form 3, not to experience RICO at all. So therefore I went into Form 4, right? But at that age, 15, 16, 14, we really and truly don't know what we want to do. Sometimes, big men now, we don't know what we want to do. And you have to rely on the input of your parents and by extension, your teachers and stuff like that. But John, I'm directing this to you first and then I'll go to the rest of them. If you all had to share some general tips to our students now, as they are in school now, what will you tell them?
I would say, at the point of being in Form 3 or 4, in particular, I don't think you need to necessarily feel that you need to get too fixated on a particular career or that you need to be at a certain stage when you get to Form 6 or afterwards. I think in my time in St. Mary's, I probably changed what I wanted to do 3 or 4 times. By the time I left in Form 6, I thought I was going to come back to Trinidad right after I studied in the UK. And I've been in the UK now 14 years. And I still don't know if I'm going to come back to Trinidad anytime soon. So my point is, plans change all the time, right? So a career that might be good when you're in Form 2 might not be that great in Form 6. Companies come and go now with breathtaking pace, But I would say focus on, Mark gave you some good advice as well. Focus on getting some technical skills. But I'll say failing that, focus on the subjects in particular that you think you are good at and that you really feel connected with and excel at those. Because if you could be a subject matter expert or show really good inclination for a particular matter, I think, you will find career prospects no matter what. So, just find that kind of path, something, I remember I was, I kind of gave this story before, but in Form 3, we had an economics teacher in my class, and, unfortunately, he couldn't finish, teaching us. It was a tragic event at the time, and it switched to Mr. Balwant, right, halfway through. And until that, I hated economics. But then afterwards, when, just the teaching changed, as well, I really started to pick up the subject. So, sometimes you have to be open to change, and also, finding your calling, so to speak. So long story short, I would say don't get too fixated in a particular, I want to be necessarily a particular career by the end, but just focus on the steps in between. Focus on actually doing good in AO levels, right? Getting good passes, right? Building that network, like Kyle said, not getting distracted, because we know as teenagers, it's very easy to get distracted. I mean, there's so many times you could go and fall into a bad crowd. I've had, all these things, I've kind of been to the brink and back multiple times, with all the distractions you have, but just try and stay focused as much as you can, because it's worth it. Trust me, by the end, you don't have to have all A's, but if you know for sure that you have tried your best, you've built a good network, like Kyle said, something will work out in the end. But you just have to give St. Mary's all the effort and attention you can, because believe it or not, these are some of the best years of your life, the best people you will meet, the best teachers you will find ever, and also I think some of the best learning you'll have for the rest of your life. So really make the most of it. That's just my message.
Thanks, John. So Hamish,
that was a paid message.
my daughter's in Form 4 going up into Form 5, right? So she's next door in SJC. She's doing the same subject that I did: Phys Chem, Bio, Ad Math, French, and your core subjects. What will you tell her?
I think I have to admit, John is a tough act to follow. I think he did it so eloquently and effectively. So I would say I do have a path in mind in terms of, okay, you want to look at science, medicine, public health, nursing, as the case may be, tech, entrepreneurship. But again, I would say, again, to your daughter and to everyone else on the call as well, don't focus too much on one particular path, because things are rapidly evolving. The world is changing. So do focus on getting those core skill sets. So I think from my perspective, if you have a strong foundation in English language and mathematics, you could do anything, to be honest. So if you're comfortable and you're confident in terms of expressing yourself, writing, and you have those numerous skills, you could really go off into economics, you could go off into data science, you could go off into medicine. So and again, just a quick personal reflection. I didn't know I wanted to be an epidemiologist until I was nearly finished with university. So I was in science, and I was like, oh, medicine seemed like a good idea. I'll just think of medicine. So I just kind of loosely oriented myself towards pre-med, but never had a passion to be a doctor. And I still don't want to be a medical doctor, to be honest. So I just kind of use that as something to, like a compass, right? So orienting myself towards this path. And what kind of skills do I need to get there, and not to close my mind off as to what other subjects, so Spanish, for instance. And the benefit of, and again, this is not to disparage you at all, but my experience is my experience, and others could relate to this. But the benefit of a liberal arts education in the US, when you do a bachelor's degree in the US, is that you're exposed to tons of subjects. And when you're young, you're a teenager, you're like, well, why are you doing Spanish for? It don't make sense. But again, looking back on it, they all add up. So in university, I did urban studies, philosophy, French, Spanish, but I still had that kind of orientation towards, loosely towards medicine. I did an internship over a summer at Duke University in botany, and I spent 3 months picking up leaves and looking under the leaves for minute hairs, and I was like, this is not for me. It's not for me. So sometimes, the point is, sometimes you have to experience different things to find out what doesn't work for you. So it was only after that kind of cemented my ambition. And I was like, you know what? Epidemiology is for Hamish. I mean, I'm definitely going to be an epidemiologist. And then I put things in place to go along that path. And that's the path I've followed since. But it wasn't until I was about 75% through university before I knew that was the path for me. So it took a while to get there. But once I found that path, I never looked back.
Excellent, excellent. I have a question here from Shelley, directed towards Kyle and Mark. Would you all consider doing a coding course for CN students during the July-August vacation? I know
I responded to Shelley privately, but
okay.
but I'll have a different response publicly. Yes, of course. We've Brefford and I and Shelley, we've spoken about it multiple times. We just end up in this sort of weird period now, you know. So I think yeah, we just need to figure out how was the best mechanism to make it happen in this time. And yeah, we're game to make it happen again for sure.
Fair enough. But seeing that both you and Mark share so much in common with respect to the field that you all are in, who's going to take that question for me with respect to tips for our boys?
Mark is the tips man.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to give you guys a different view of the world. I will give you some practical things that you should do at your age. However, in my line of work, and to some degree, Dr. Mohammed's line of work, even in Pierre's own, when you do machine learning, your goal is to automate a task. Your goal is, if a human is not involved, that is the perfect world. And there is the ethical question, should you be working on that? And my response to that is, if I don't work on it, someone else will, and I will get replaced, okay? And it will do best for you to understand where machine learning is moving in both image, speech to text, NLP, that's natural language processing. You need to understand where the world is going technologically. Because some careers will be, to some degree, eliminated or minimized, right? So you may be planning in your mind, oh, I want to go do this. Someone will come up with an algorithm to do that as part of your job. Second, when you graduate, no one owes you a job. Understand why a business exists. A business exists for profit. They are solving a problem for a customer. The customer is willing to pay a higher price than what it's really worth so they can make a profit. That's it. Even if government is doing it, somebody's making money. So sadly, yes, that is the world that we live in. You need to get over that and understand what is your hourly rate. If you play in the employment marketplace, there's an hourly rate based on the skill set that you have. Focus on your hourly rate if that is important to you in terms of what you want to do with your life. Third, decide what your dream life might look like right now. Like, hey, I've decided, okay, I can live off of 60,000 US a year, okay? And I've calculated that costs $3.6 million at 6% interest, and I can get $60,000 coming in every year. I could go on a beach, surf all day, relax myself, do what I want, okay? That's a different way to think of what employment means. So when it comes back to it, you have to understand there's a system. The system is school, right? Those like, let's take Pierre, for instance, right? I always admired that he was doing economics, and I'm that person who was interested in everything, okay? I could really apply myself if I decided to. And I just decided to apply myself super last minute to the sciences. And I've always been a last minute person. So I'm here to prove to you that even if you are a slacker, if you do put in work and you have good communication skills, things will pay off. Things you can do today, learn to write, and learn to write from now. Just like at my age, I'm actually going back and learning to write even better because I'm like, oh, wow, I should have studied that in school. I just wish somebody would have hit me with a stick in my face and be like, just learn to write. That will open so many doors. For instance, if you become a copywriter, there's this one guy who paid someone $82,000 for a single piece of script, and the guy made $1 million. Okay, so those are skills that are now available in the open marketplace. Next, why I encourage you to get a technical degree or get experience coding, because previously you used to have permission to start a business. You needed to get capital from a wealthy person, or you needed to rely on someone technical. If you have that technical skill, you can build a business on your own for very cheap, solve someone's problem for profit, and build a business on your own. So there's a certain amount of freedom in addition to the media world that you have in order to progress yourself, right? So from today, study the marketplace. go look at the salaries of some jobs. Ask yourself, how much is it to rent? Calculate the expenses, okay? Calculate this some dollar amount that you think would be a cool life and work backwards from that and think of your hourly rate. When you choose your subjects, my personal take is to choose subjects that give you a wide array of options when you go into a career. So for instance, like I didn't like chemical engineering, they just got paid the most. And then I know I have certain skills that I can go do. Oh, I can do software engineering, now I'm in data science, right? So that ability to pivot will be one of your greatest assets in the future. And network. In addition to that, like just try hard. I wish if I put the same amount of effort like Pierre, I'd have been Oxford right next to him. Okay. And this is a very good example of discipline versus non-discipline. Right. He put in a lot of work and I saw that and I was like, wow, I really want to do that. But yeah. And I try, but like, nah, I didn't study enough. And you have to work harder on the tail end. Right. So it is very possible to make it to wherever you decide you want to go. And once you get there, just take a little left turn, do something else. I'll stop there.
All right, thanks, Mark. This is going to be a question for anybody. This is something that I posed to my foremans. I've been having meetings with them for the last couple of months. So as you all are aware, we are in very extraordinary times with the COVID-19 pandemic. If you all had to identify one positive impact of COVID-19, what would it be?
So I mean, I'll start with that. I think because of the nature of this pandemic, and this is a pandemic of unprecedented proportions, because of its very nature, it's forced us to innovate very rapidly. So in terms of service delivery, in terms of how we communicate, and yes, I know Zoom fatigue is real, but at the same time, because of the pandemic and the disruption it's caused, suddenly there are opportunities such as this that you are doing with support from Brevard as well, in terms of facilitating an international panel, a mix of people in Trinidad and Tobago and overseas to do an event like this. So on a personal experience, I'm talking to my family on a more regular basis than I would have ordinarily. So I think in some respects, in as much as we're socially distancing, it's bringing us closer together in other avenues. So I think that's my positive, or the positive slant I would see from this disruption we're all going through.
I'd just like to add one. It may or may not be positive, kind of. At least in my company, we laid off a ton of people. Okay. And what you learn in that process is what value do you bring to a business? And I don't think many people speak to you in school about, in the real world, it comes down to the value that you bring to a business. That is what ensures that you will get money in your account every month, because that business is going to take a tremendous amount of risk. So from my view, it has forced me to ask myself, how valuable am I? And this notion of security, okay? And do I have skill sets that are COVID proof, that are pandemic proof, that are machine learning proof? That's something that you will have to face at some point in your future. So I think it's good now that you're seeing all these people getting laid off. You're like, oh, I wanted to do that. Oh, they just got laid off. And that forces you to think differently about what you're going to do.
I think I'll jump on that. It's kind of adding to what Dr. Mohammed was saying as well, and also Mark. We're seeing a kind of accelerated realignment of some of the world's economies and businesses, and companies which we saw as the dominant ones 20 years ago, are kind of falling by the wayside. I saw that Tesla's worth more now than ExxonMobil. I remember back in Trinidad, that was like the king, in terms of, you look at all the oil companies, it's the biggest oil company in the world, right? Not present in Trinidad, but, big. And now everything is going to Tesla, and Zoom is bigger than all the 7 top airlines in the world in terms of market size. So we're seeing this accelerated shift, and with shift comes opportunity, especially for young people looking to craft their skills, seeing what's, coming up next. And it's an exciting time. So I would say, listen to what I think Mark has, in his own way, given some real pearls of wisdom here. I think you should write a book, some kind of cheat sheet, I guess, right? In terms of, how to maximize your value. But I think, definitely, I think, COVID is, the world after COVID is not going to be the same. It might try to shift back to how it was before, but we're going to see new economies coming out. And I think, just read a lot, see what's out there, see how things might be changing. Because you know what, that career you were thinking about 6 months ago, it may not exist. It might not even be appealing anymore, but there might be a new thing that could be big, right? So if you could go out and try and spot these opportunities early and try and, get your skills in line with that and get more technical in a way. But I would say it's not just about getting, because we can't have only technical people, to be fair. And to a certain extent, if we have people doing machine learning, if, a lot of things are done by robots, you're going to need some of the complementary social skills as well. So don't ignore that, because that could be very, when we say AI, it's also about augmented intelligence and also about, you being complementary to the machine learning or to the robot. So also think about, okay, what could I add value? What's my skill set that can't be automated potentially, right? Maybe, I'm good at, networking with people, smooshing, bringing in clients. Maybe that's my thing. That, Mark Moyer can't go and write a Python algorithm that, takes my job away. So, I'd say just, it's an exciting time as well. Don't be too pessimistic, because, when we come out the other end, young people are going to have new opportunities to really make a mark in the future. So, let's see how it goes.
Can I just add 2 quick things there? My boss told me, in my line of work, you're judged by how much hours you can bill to the client. And he's like, yeah, you're the worst billed person in the entire org, but you bring in the most revenue. And that is simply because of my ability to speak to people, right? So I can do the tech and speak to people. That's an incredibly powerful skill set, right? That if you get to practice that in CIC, talking crap to everybody, that's a great skill. And the other one is, someone asked Jeff Bezos why he started Amazon. And he says that he lives for regret minimization, right? If he knew that if he looked back and he didn't start Amazon, he would regret it. Okay, so consider that when you go decide that you want to try something. Would you regret it? And, just kind of go for it as well. So something to think about.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think post-COVID world, one of the biggest changes that I'm most excited about is the impact on education, for you guys especially. So in my next phase of life, education is something that I'm super passionate about, that I really want to get into and figure out how we reform education from this one-size-fits-all sort of approach that tends to alienate people who are not necessarily academically inclined or don't show that they're academically inclined in the first few years of their life, and so you're written off, I think that our education system has been the slowest to move towards technology, or one of the slowest to move towards technology, and that has only been for a negative impact on you, the student. The fact now that we're forced to embrace technology in this way, whereby we're actually having these Zoom calls, is the first of its kind. Like, Zoom it wasn't created last week. We could have been doing this years now, Skype been around, but now we having this, so I'm grateful that COVID has happened, that is driving us to begin thinking about how we approach our education system in a more digital way to meet you, the student, where you're at, instead of trying to put you behind a desk that's been there since Mr. Sampat was in school. There's some of them that's probably there, right? Exactly. And they want you to conform to that. A chalk, you still write on chalk on board. If you don't write on chalk on board, a marker on board. Whatever these different mechanisms, it's the same approach to teaching since way back in the day. Like, things need to evolve. And I'm grateful that COVID has come into play, whereby we're taking into consideration the fact that people learn at different rates, at different paces. And so some people will want to learn at night. Like, I'm a real night person. Like, me and Mark, definitely, we used to study straight through night, straight to exam with almost no sleep and do exams, but that's not normal. Jonathan is an early morning person. Like, he's been up early in the morning, like, forever ever since, And so, but school don't cater to those things. Like, you had to come to school 7:30, and my brain not getting wired until school almost done. Meanwhile, Jonathan get the best out of school because he's fresh early in the morning. And I now starting to crank as the days start to go on, But at the end of the day, all of us still had to fall into this one mechanism to learn. And then because school provided optimal results for Jonathan, because he's that morning person, he's up early, reading his papers and doing his past papers. And I am the slow, stupid person because my brain started turning on after 12, you know? And I miss a lot of what you were saying in the early morning classes. And I was similar to Mark in that sense that I could sleep almost anywhere. And if I didn't finish sleep at home, better what I come into sleep in school. And so, again, right off by my teachers in the early morning classes, that Maloney's a waste of time because he's sleeping in my class all the time when he's not paying attention. My brain just didn't turn on yet, you know? And so I'm grateful that COVID is causing us to kind of rethink how we design our education systems, rethink how we design our curriculum, and bring education to students and meet them where their needs are at versus trying to have this one-size-fits-all thing for everybody. And yeah.
Yeah, because I think you both of you really hit the nail on the head because I had seen a question here. How do you think the education system should evolve post-COVID-19? And you all did hit it on the head. I mean, broaden your skills base. I mean, if I have to share with you guys something, our first confirmed COVID case in Trinidad and Tobago, I will always remember that date, is March the 11th. And why will I remember that date? Because that's the day my son was born. So that was his birthday.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Oh, by the way, guys, he'll be a future
Congrats.
seminaries guy. He's writing SEA later this year. So he's starting right in October. But, you know, Hamish, you really said it true. Eh? There is something called Zoom fatigue. Because just a few days before March 11th, I was sitting on and thinking to myself, oh God, I have to start these Zoom classes and Google Classrooms and stuff like that. And look at me now. Fellas, I swear, I get more work done home than in school because when you're in class, well, bet your bottom dollars, one of you clowns get involved in some fight and I have to stop teaching to come and deal with that. True or false?
Facts.
So I think everybody now getting a picture of everything, but I left the best for last. And I really want you all to think about this. I want your favoritist St. Mary's story. Something from St. Mary's College.
How truthful we could be.
What is that, Mark?
How truthful we could be there. Like, there are things these students can't be hearing and thinking.
Be truthful but kosher at the same time, thank you. Right. So, John, let me hear your favoritist St. Mary's College story.
Gosh, I don't even know what story. I had a lot of memories with Mr. Raja. I remember Mr. Sapat. You kind of disparaged him a bit there, but I used to drive this red Chevy to school, right? Mayou probably remember it. And one time I was parking by Form 6, and the little bumper got caught in the hedge, and it got ripped off of the car in St. Mary's ground, in the CIC, close to Frederick Street. And Raja comes running out to the classroom, pointing at me, saying, "Hey, look, your red Chevy destroyed in the hedge." And it's something I think about every now and then, because, you know, the good thing about the teachers is, you know, they like to have a good time as well. But I would say, besides all that, one of the really good memories was what I said before in terms of when we used to study on Saturday evenings, and we had our sweats, our midnight sweat, or whatever we used to have in the big yard. You probably can't do that anymore. But I mean, that was good fun, and I think we made some good friends then. But yeah, I don't know if I have any other stories, or maybe I think Mo, you have about 10 you want to give there.
I have one in particular.
Which one?
I think this really has like cemented our brotherhood and camaraderie. This in particular, which is football.
Or the World Cup.
Not just the World Cup, but not just one particular memory, but the occurrence of this happening, the RAS, right? In Form 1 learning the RAS, and then us before big games going into that hall and hyping up each other, chanting that RAS before we go out for the games, like those moments of like getting excited before a football match and getting the whole school involved and get everybody around like, yo, you're going to mash them up. take. And then you go.
The problem was
that was unique. You get cut off.
Yeah, we never won anything at that time, though. We never won anything. Right. That was the problem, you know.
But that's what I say is the both sides of the coin. You get real hype, you get the licks, and you bond through licking the wounds together now, you know.
I think I enjoyed Mayfair more than watching CIC lose the football, but anyway. Or even, should I say, Fatima Mayfair too, unfortunately.
We won't hold that against you, right?
Wait, somebody say the F word? So we had to keep it kosher.
Yeah. But after we talk, after the people go, I will tell you what Fatima means. My son told me what Fatima means, and I laughed till I cry, right? So
I think you were in secondary school yet.
He's doing his brainwashing in Maria Regina, so I had to give him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Hamish, you left in '96, right?
Yeah.
And I left in '97, so we were 1 year apart. Let me hear. What was your favorite story?
So it was a scorching, I can't remember what day of the week, a scorching afternoon, October 1995, intercall semifinals. And I am proud to say that I was a card-carrying member of the CIC Rhythm section. And again, Mr. Nelson was a seminal member, right? Because I wouldn't lie, I'm not musically inclined, but my contribution to the rhythm section was the scratcher. And I did that scratch with passion, so much so, when the rhythm section took a break, I would break out in song and say, solo scratch, and start scratching on the scratcher like a madman. But such was my school spirit, I could empathize completely with what Kyle was saying. So the memories of football match, we were in the National Stadium. We went and got face paint because it's always a good excuse to interact with the female fans of the CIC football team. And I was one of the few people charged with the important task of raising school spirit by painting faces of my fellow classmates and the female fans as well. So my fond memory is both a solo scratch on a scorching afternoon in the stadium and painting the blue and white on faces of a few female fans. So I'll never forget that. And of course, doing the Raz and the football results and seeing your friends on the pitch and so on. But that's something, looking back on it, I think very fondly of it, you know?
Yeah.
I think I have a couple real quick there. So the football in the night was a lot of fun. I definitely remember that. What's interesting is, you know, everybody was driving at that point. So everybody drive to school thing. You bring food, you sit down, you eat food, you fall asleep, and everybody else doing work. And then you just wake up in the night and play football and get no work done. And then when Mr. Raja come in the next morning, everybody at 5 o'clock in the morning, man, waking up, studying. Yeah, Mr. Raja, it was a good night. You know, we do well work, thing. You know, right? I think I spent a lot of time sweeping CIC because I was in detention a lot. So funny enough, I think learning to sweep well teaches you a lot of focus, right? And you just learn to do a good job, because if you didn't do it, Mr. Raja make you stay there the whole time.
Well, it's like the M team. Remember, Raja started a rival team to rival the prefects.
Yes.
I'm coming back to that next story now. So I was head prefect. Mr. Raja told me, you know what, Pierre? I used to be head prefect in 1970, wherever it was. And I don't like how the prefects going, so I started my own thing called the M team.
M team,
right?
Yeah.
And they had their own badges.
Yep.
And they had their own, I don't know what I think they used to go around sweeping as well, because they had banned the actual maintenance by people who weren't doing RE anymore. So he had to form his own team called the M team, right? But yeah, that was a good memory as well, Mr. Raja and the M team.
That was a big fight. And my last one is I was the secretary of the prefects, and we had prefects concerts. I don't know if that still exists. And the teachers were doing a dance on the stage, and then all of the prefects decided to rush the stage. I had on a Spider-Man mask, so I decided to go and whine behind Miss Little Page. Right, I didn't actually touch her. I didn't touch her, but I was just like this. And then the teachers started to freak out, and everybody was going mad. And then they bring all the prefects in the hall, and it's like, who was doing that? And nobody didn't say nothing. I know. And then eventually I had to confess, because, you know, Mr. Robinson was going to kill me still. Good times.
No, really some good times.
Yeah, just to say, I was secretary of the prefects as well, but I didn't misbehave in a prefects concert. So.
Yeah. But John, we still have the M team, but we don't call it the M team anymore. We call it the B team, the Balwan team. I think Mr. Balwan listening to us now, so that's the reason why I put that plug in there.
Okay.
but it's so, I mean, what I'm getting from you is the night football. So I'm gonna ask you guys a question, right? If the opportunity arises, would you all like to do that again?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I ain't that. I coming home. Call the sweat, I come in.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the way my knee set up, you know, in my back. Well,
yeah, might just stand up in a spot and pass the ball, but you know.
he into that cut off there, boy.
Pressure. You see, he said the wrong thing on the school Zoom there, and the school shut them down.
Sweat.
What other thing? Yeah? Yes or no?
Yeah.
No, your internet had cut off.
Oh, my internet had cut off there?
Yeah.
Because a few years back, as you all know, I'm Medina foreman, so I had a little family day right in the beginning. And I was sitting down with some parents after, and these parents, I went to school with them and stuff like that. And we were reminiscing about that. And they said, Mr. Sampert, why we don't start a sweat in the night? So I'm glad to hear.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So, Bravard, we have to work on that, sir.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So,
I know. I was just touching on because there are a couple folks that asked some questions so that we may have missed. Kyle, even though you're not in aerospace engineering, I mean, somebody was asking like what type of subjects are required for aerospace engineering if they are interested or so inclined to get into that space or field.
Yeah, I answered on the Q&A section. Yeah, but I'll repeat it. So aerospace engineering, just like most other engineerings, is a physics math sort of approach. A lot of things are just based on physics and math. Like I ended up with a math minor. I did like 6 math courses. Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, differential equations, linear programming. So you end up doing a lot of math afterwards. And to Jonathan's point of the teacher making a huge difference. So that shocker on Mark's face because in school, I wasn't the best at maths. Actually, like, full disclosure, I get an E in ad maths just enough to get into Form 6, right? And then when I went to university, I did over Form 6 maths in my first semester. And I met this Indian teacher from India who changed my entire life. She was phenomenal. She took all the like blocks that I had and perceptions that I had about math, like, oh, it was hard and I didn't understand cosine and tangent and differentiation and things that all sounded like gibberish to me, and I just could have put enough pieces together to just pass. I ended up getting an A in her class. I ended up getting over 90 in her class. And then in every other math class after that, the lowest grade I got was a B. Then my Calc 1 teacher was phenomenal. The man was like a genius. Like, he saw the world in terms of like sinusoidal waves. And he was able to break things down in a very like basic way that you're like, oh my God, like it makes so much sense. And so to Jonathan's point and his experience with Mr. Balwant, I had that same experience later on in university where I was able to find that teacher who kind of like open that door, change your perspective, lower your barriers, change how you would view things. And it was an entirely different experience to me. Therefore, going forward, I even like have like math trauma. Like I tell my friends all the time, like because I was so bad at maths growing up, I still feel like bad at maths. And then, you know, like all the time. And so I end up calculating things, doing things fine. And I'm like, okay, like still convincing myself that I'm good at this, you know? So physics and math are the 2 biggest things by far. Like that's the foundation of the entire degree, quite frankly.
If I could add something to Kyle's point, right? This notion that some subjects will come to you a lot easier than others, right? So I wasn't great at any subject, right? Not even Spanish, I was cheating. Yeah, so I was the answer for that exam. That's me, okay? And I think when you hear other people, you absorb their limits. Do not
That's
absorb
true. That is
anyone
true.
else's limits.
True.
Okay. If you put in enough work and you have to ask yourself questions like, why am I doing this? Okay, I don't really like school, but they're making me force. Okay, get over that. You have to do school anyway. That's the system. Ask your teacher, what can I solve with this? And if they don't have an answer, you have access to the entire internet. So what you learn is that there is not an absence of information. There is an absence of a desire to learn. Okay, you are in school to learn. The more you learn, the more problems you get solved, the richer you get. The world just becomes interesting, right? I think someone asked a question, if I can go back in time, what advice would I give to my 16-year-old self? Just get the work done. Like, stop messing around. Okay, there's a certain amount of work you need to get an A or a 9 above a 90, just get it done, right? And then go and play the fool after that, right? Have all your friends. You don't have to give up your friends. You don't have to give up pursuit of the, whichever thing you're going after. Enjoy your life. However, school is the thing, get it done. And if you get it done well and you get the things behind your name, like, so many doors open up and you have a much, I don't want to say a much easier time, but a much clearer path of the opportunities that are available to you.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid if you don't know what you want to do. Just like, all right, well, who get paid? Consider something like me. Who get paid the most? Can I do it? Okay, cool, I'll go in. Because I used to be these people who give tours for incoming students, and parents are like, oh, my son don't know what to do. Hey, how much you want to get paid? Right? And my thought was, hey, I want to make as much money as possible. So when I figure out what I want to do, I could go and do it. Okay, so though there are different plans for you out there. And take an example from Kyle. Like, Kyle formed a very good group of friends in CIC that was a mastermind. They had each other's back, and they just progressed. Okay, and you have to recognize, do you have other people around you that have that same mindset? If not, protect yourself. Like, hey, you have your own goals, and you guys don't even realize the opportunity you have by speaking to us. I wish I had a Jon Pierre, a Kyle to tell me, because I probably would have just quit school and go and try to start something else. Maybe it's different, right? But take advantage of the opportunity that you have by meeting us.
Yeah. That point that Mark make in terms of the people that you surround yourself with, I think that is really important. My mother always said, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And I always disagree with her, because I could always show her friends that, wasn't doing the greatest or whatever the case is. I could always show her an example to disprove what she was saying, right? But it holds true in so many respects that, especially as it relates to doing well in school and making progress, is that the people you spend a lot of your time with is, you share those thoughts, you share that thinking, and you sort of like vibrate on a similar level and a similar frequency. And so it's really important to be deliberate about the people you spend your time with, and not saying to not spend time with people that don't necessarily vibrate on those frequencies, because it's important to have alternate views and perspectives in life. But if you're on a mission and you're trying to achieve a certain goal, like, the only way to achieve that goal is to surround yourself with people who are on that same mission. Unless you're just insanely talented and you're this one-man show and you could just do it all alone, which by and large, 99% of people, you just can't do it by yourself. Yeah.
Can I ask for one thing from the CIC people, right? So there are 3 significant events in your life in CIC. Form 3, Form 5, and Form 6. That's it. There's nothing else, right? Everything else in between, well, lower 6 and upper 6. So a part of that is passing. You have 1 or 2 hours in an exam that determines your entire life, right? Or certain access to scholarships and all these types of things. It would be fantastic. The biggest challenge I had when we used to go to those night sweats was I got access to people who are a lot smarter than me. Okay. And because they were kind enough to impart their knowledge, I was able to learn beyond the classroom, because I was like Kyle, my brain was dead during the day, right? I think what would be fantastic as a great resource for the students is every single past paper question, there is a corresponding video explanation of it. So that student can go back and there's just a bunch of questions that you have to pass to get access, right? I think it would be fantastic. Yes, you have to protect your lessons, money, and all this kind of thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that their futures will suffer because they don't pass those 3 exams. choose the right subjects, get all ones in Form 5, get all ones in lower 6 and upper 6. It's really not that hard when you finish your exams, you realize like, wow, if I just put in like 10% more work, I'll get all ones. And that's a sad feeling. It sucks. Don't do it.
Well, I'll say at the same time though, taking what, a bit about what Mark and Kyle are saying, there's so much information out there as well, right? Especially now versus when even we were in school, there's literally no limit to what you could find out on your own as well. So just go out. You have to be clinical, right? You asked about the good stories and the memories. We had great memories in Tobago, right? We used to spend, how long did we spend in Tobago after exams, right? The whole summer, right? So, and that was fantastic. But we used to do that because we put the work in beforehand, right? And we knew we just had to get through, study our butts off, and then we had all the time in the world afterwards to enjoy, and we did enjoy because we were happy with what we had put in. So literally, you just have to see, we need to get through it. Just put the effort in. If you don't find out things from class, ask the teacher. If you can't ask the teacher, if you need to find out again, go on the internet, Google it. Do whatever resource, find whatever resource you can to really make sure you understand it properly, right? And I think, another thing that, used to help me a lot was every concept that you see, just try and break it down very simply for yourself. Write it in a notebook, make it so that if someone else asks you a question, you can explain it. Some of the best way you understand something is when you could tell someone else or teach it to someone else who doesn't understand it. So make sure that you have it in first principles. This is what Elon Musk always says. You break things down to first principles so that literally a toddler can understand it, and then you could teach someone who's never heard anything about it before, and you understand it like a master basically by the end. So just take your time. Take the effort and the time to understand things deeply and from the basics, and just use all the resources out there and just get through the exam, get through Form 3, get through Form 5, Form 6, because don't worry about after the exam. Your friends will be there. The Lions will be there after the exams. The football might not be there in terms of the Premier League, but the sweat will be there. There'll be plenty sweat afterwards, right? All these things, all these sacrifices you put in, you say, I can't go to this fete, this all-inclusive, all that, don't worry. 14 years after this, I left St. Mary's, you know what, Carnival's still going on. There's still all these all-inclusives, people still going and sweating. So that small sacrifice for that time, it'll be worth it. So just get through. And afterwards, you can go online and have fun.
I completely agree with that. So there's value in the sacrifice. And again, I just wanted to say a couple of things come true from all the panelists as well. People find the paths at different points in time, and people come into their own at different stages in life. So you'll come across students who will have that dedication and that focus, and they excel in sports, in music, in exams, whatever the case may be. But for most people, that will happen when they're adults. So don't be discouraged. Keep in mind that people will come into their own at different stages in life. And don't take on anybody who tells you can't do it. Because if you are passionate about something, that you have access to information and there are options. Yes, you would have your O and the A levels, but if you want to pursue other paths, you can. You could take the entrepreneurial path. You could write exams and study in other school systems. So there are opportunities, there's a host of opportunities out there. So just bear that in mind, you know what I mean? And don't ever take on anybody that says you can't do it.
Can I just add 2 quick ones? I know I added like 15 quick ones, but when it comes to
You've
bullying,
added in at least 5 2 quick ones. All
right. That's the strategy. 5 2 quick ones. You get the 15, right? Quick thing, when it comes to the bullying, right, and all you're making fun of each other, that does affect some people more than others, right? And I've had friends who've killed themselves because of things like that. I don't think that's very fair to them. Yeah, joke is joke, but at the same time, be real that you are harming someone's mental health for the rest of their lives. And while it kicks you in the point, like, can I go back and just say, yo, I was just joking, like, to study that. That's a big thing that I think harms a lot of people. And I think it would be great to see that part of the culture be leveled and be associated well with each other. And the last one is when you're doing an exam, they're not asking you to solve like some brand new problem that's never been solved. It's kind of been done, so don't freak out as much.
Well, Hamish, you in my cohort, so I would like to direct what I'm going to say now to John, Mark, and Kyle. No words could express how I feel about you guys now. To see how you all have grown, and I mean, all four of you all are leaders in your own respective fields out there. And I started earlier today when we had our chat. You all are still sons of St. Mary's College. Nothing is going to change that. You all are family members. So we're going to begin wrapping up now. So I want to ask the four of you all, in 5 words or less, if you have to leave something impressionable on our boys now who are listening, in 5 words or less, what will it be? Kyle, start off with you. I like to put all on the spot, you know.
Yeah. I go back to my first point that I made that resonated most with me. So everybody can only speak from their perspective and their experiences. And so that's one thing that you need to remember, that people speak from their own experiences. So you don't really take that one to be yours necessarily, but take from it what you will. And mine is, to Mark's last point, go light on the bullying, go light on the pecan, go light on the shit talk. Is all fun. It actually, in some respect, it helps build a sense of character as well, to get some shit talk and be able to like get over it and brush it off and that sort of thing. Because when you go into the real world, you're gonna get that times 100. But build those relationships, build those genuine relationships, see everybody around you as somebody that's truly valuable, and it's gonna pay back so many dividends in the end, man. So see everyone as, I'm summarizing it, all right? See everyone as valuable, all right? That's it there. See everyone as valuable.
Forward.
Everyone. That's it there. See everyone as valuable. That's it.
So Hamish, leave something for our guys here to remember you by.
So I would say again, I really happy that Dr. Mayou raised that point about bullying. So again, I just 5 words to keep it succinct. So respect, tolerance, focus, be open-minded.
Wonderful, excellent. Mark?
Do your best now. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And John?
Kind of echoing what Mark has just said, and also, you know, he made a very good point on the bullying, but I think as well, just to summarize, you know, make the most of it. You know, and that's my message. You know, you don't get to rerun life, right? So you really have to make the most of it. You know, you might be able to redo your exams maybe, but it's not ideal. So just make the most of it, I would say.
Very good. So in concluding, on behalf of our principal, Mr. Joseph, who unfortunately, as I said, couldn't be here due to pressing matters, Kyle, Hamish, Mark, John, I mean, fellas, thanks so much. I mean, words can't express the gratitude that we feel that you all gave of your time, and we know that time is valuable to give back to the school. Bravo, President of the Past Students Union and the PSU for being such an instrumental factor in making this possible. And I'm putting you on the spot now, brother. Let's hope that tomorrow is not the last that we see of these. Very good. That we see of these webinars, right? We have the parent-teacher support group, and the head of the parent-teacher support group, Mrs. Shelly Prasad. You all may have interacted with her already, right? So she is like, I would always say she's a catalyst, since I know her from Form 1. Her son was with me in Form 1 2 years back. She's a catalyst, and I still have to develop the art of telling her no, because she volunteered me for the moderator position today. But really and truly, I mean, I feel honored and privileged having shared these couple hours with you. And to all our attendees, for really and truly taking part. And I really and truly hope that you all listen, These guys graduated from school just a couple years ago, and look how successful they are. So again, John, Mark, Hamish, Kyle, I can't wait for the day to see you all, to give you all that hug, and to tell you all thanks. I mean, fantastic job, fellas.
Mr. Sampat.
Uh-huh.
I want to say one thing. I think one thing that has not been said on this call from us is a thank you, right? Because at some point in our lives, you had a part, you know, I was your former student. You were chemistry, I did chemical engineering. The teachings and things that we have learned from you have been an instrumental part in our lives, right? So we thank you for, you know, teaching us for us to get to this point, because we couldn't get there without you. And for those of you on the call, if you have the joy of being very successful in life and looking back at your teachers and being very grateful, that is a fantastic feeling. And please never look down at your teachers, right? They have built you up and they've done their part in your life to get you to where you are. So have some respect for that and honor that when you see them.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll also say all the past students as well put the effort in.
Yeah.
I remember Mr. Sedley Joseph and all these, you know, people who you'd see, because, you know, besides the teachers, all the staff, you know, down to the security guards and everyone who we all remember.
Yes.
You know, we remember, yeah, 10
Yeah.
you know, so, you know, it's like we have to appreciate everyone, especially as well. Everyone who plays their part in, you know, keeping St. Mary's what it is. Definitely.
And fun. And the other guy, man, kind of dark-skinned fellow.
Junior.
Yeah.
And I will also give Rico Picon that the day he goes to the great beyond, we will bury him in a time capsule in St. Mary's College.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In the Form 6 block.
Correct. So on that note, I mean, I think we have come to the end, Mr. Nelson.
I will just echo a couple of the sentiments that the panelists have shared. I mean, it has been a pleasure seeing this series come to fruition, and watching past students who have been willing to give up their time. I mean, Mark spoke about, you know, the cost per hour and people's rates. If you really think about the time that they've given up to give back to their alma mater, that's significant. And the reality is that, as Kyle mentioned earlier, you know, COVID-19 has forced us and has been a bit of a catalyst for some change. This is something that could have been done years ago. It forced us to do it now. And one of the things that I want to ensure that we enforce and continue to do is to push ourselves to do things that we would not normally do. And so, to your point, Nigel, and it's something that I will definitely ensure that it continues to happen, is that stuff like this continue to happen. We don't need to wait on another pandemic to push us to connect. And we're also definitely going to be playing a role with the alumni that live abroad through like our foreign chapters, etc., which you'll be hearing more about soon. But I really do appreciate, and I want to thank the panelists for, you know, just taking their time and responding to the call. You know, it's fairly short notice to some extent, but responding to the call and coming back to give back to your alma mater. So thank you, respect, and to all the participants. You know, obviously you got some pearls of wisdom and some nuggets from these folks. Remember, tomorrow we also have the sports and entertainment panel, where we will be discussing similarly their journey and you know, maybe giving some more tips as well. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care. All I get all ones and things now, eh? All don't get your rapper ready.
Yeah, you get a report. We'll check the report.
Stay safe, guys.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Take care.